Hey everyone, welcome back to Tuesday Tea with me, Alisha Bowker Mudrock. Today I have a good friend, Tosh, with us in line with our theme for this month around leading lady energy. I'm going to have some really incredible women who I feel possess and really motivate me to step into it and become even more of a leading lady in my own life. But these are some badass powerhouse women. Tosh is no exception. She is head of sales at a bank. She also just is a dynamic human who is so wise and kind and big heart, big goals, and just unapologetic about who she is and not afraid to take up space in such a powerful and what's the word I'm looking for? Inspiring way. So I'm thankful to have her here today. And we're just going to kind of talk a bit, just kind of about her own journey, what leading lady energy really means to her, and maybe some tips, some tricks, some obstacles she's overcome, and we'll see what comes out in the next half hour. So thanks for being here today, Tosh.
Thank you for having me, Alicia.
So I'd love to hear maybe just when you hear that phrase leading lady energy, what kind of comes to mind in general or for yourself personally, and we'll just kind of start there and see where we go.
As you mentioned, my name is Tosh. It rhymes with posh.
She's
And
very posh.
maybe you can hear from my accent, but I'm originally from Texas. And joking, of course. I'm originally from London, England, and so I spent 12 years in New York. Sorry, I had to find the name there because I now live in not so sunny Miami. We are pre-Hurricane Milton, so we're,
Yes.
we're all
Yes.
keeping our fingers crossed that it
Yes.
is not as bad as they tell us. But yes, the last 2 years in Miami, Alicia, we were neighbors.
Yes, we were.
So when I think about leading lady energy, to me, I think about two things, which is conviction and ambition. And there's like an
Mm,
old proverb that says, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And so for me, conviction is a deep-seated belief in like who you are and the fact that you're so unique that only you can say the words that you need to say, only you can do the things that you need to do.
hmm.
Honestly, no one else can do it for you. If you don't believe in yourself, it's one of those things that no one else is going to do for you. And almost everyone else will try and take away from you. So,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
the world will always tell you that you can't, but this deep-seated conviction will remind you that not only must you do it, but you have to do it because you're the only version of you available to the world. Like everyone else is taken. So be you,
Yeah.
do you, but have a conviction, like know what deep-seated injustice in life you are called for. Like what is it that upsets you so much that you
Hmm.
just have to do it? Because the things that trigger you don't trigger everyone.
Yeah.
And I love to listen to this guy. He calls himself a futurist. His name is Erwin McManus, but he talks about the stories that we tell ourselves, and some of us tell ourselves the story of the victim and not the victim.
Mm,
And so if there's
hmm.
something that victimizes you, that's probably your call to action, that you are supposed to make sure that nobody else is victimized by that thing. That's probably your
Hmm.
deep-seated conviction that you need to go
Hmm.
after. And so I always think that like leading ladies are convicted. They have a conviction about something that they are going to make sure that this is better for women, men, the whole world at large. Like this thing is not going to happen to anyone else, and they're going to make
Yeah.
sure that they take care of it. And like I think about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Malala Yousafzai, Sojourner Truth. Let me go ahead and just like throw my girl, Vice President Harris, on that list.
Yeah.
And when I think about women and conviction, I always think about that Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie quote that was like in that Beyonce song. It says like, we teach women to shrink to make themselves smaller.
Yes.
We
Yes.
say to girls to have ambition, but not too much. You should aim to be successful, but not too
Well, not too
successful.
successful. Right.
Otherwise, you might threaten the man.
Hmm.
And so I think that's why when I think about leading lady energy, and I was thinking through this question earlier when you sent it to me, it has to be conviction, but it also has to be ambition. Because without ambition,
Yes.
all these things they teach you, you'll shrink for, quote unquote, the man. You have
Right.
to successful, but not too successful. You have to
Right.
be ambitious, but not too ambitious. But you actually have to be really, really ambitious to lead.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Mm-hmm.
lead without ambition, nobody will follow you because you need to be far enough ahead for people to come behind you. And so
Right.
to lead, you actually have to be out in front. And that means you have to be competitive. And I just think
Mm-hmm.
about all the people we celebrate. We celebrate like Olympic athletes, we celebrate
Mm-hmm.
people in the NBA, we celebrate all of these people that we think are rock stars. But yeah, we're told that being competitive is not feminine. It's not something that
Right.
you can do. But
Right.
you have to be so damn competitive. You do
Right.
the lead and lady.
Right.
No one's going to follow you somewhere you're not going. And if you
No.
stall, then they stall. So
Yep.
then who are you leading if you're not out in front? And so, personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with being ambitious. I think you have to have ambition towards a conviction. You can't be ambitious for ambitious sake because then you're just running over people and sure you're getting where you're going, but
Right.
everyone has tire tracks on their backs. So
Right.
yes, teamwork is really important. Collaboration is really important. And people love the C's like communication, collaboration. The minute you say competition, they're like, no, 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 we
Oh,
don't
not that
compete.
one. Yeah.
Okay, then how are you leading if you're not
Right.
competing?
Right.
So, but yes, I 1,000% think that conviction and competitiveness are like the two superpowers I see from almost every leading lady I think of. They're always
Mm-hmm.
top,
Mm-hmm.
and they always have a conviction that keeps them there as well.
Mm. Yeah. And that's so important. And I've talked about this many times over with other guests in different iterations, but really having, another word I think for some of that conviction is then a vision with it, right? Where are you headed? What are you moving towards? What are you trying to do with your life? Because if we don't understand what living in alignment looks like for us, and it can look 100% different for every single person, that is okay. That's important, right? But if I'm not clear on what alignment means to me, one, it's really easy to give my power away and in very dangerous ways sometimes because like you said, people love to take. If you just not everyone's just good and nice and kind, and even the best hearted people we will take. If it's there, it's like, oh yeah, I'll take that, right? So if we're just so freely giving our narrative away, our power away, the steering wheel away, someone's going to pick that up, and you better hope it's like the lesser of the worst evils who's picking it up. But let's not even give it away in the first place, right? But if I'm not clear
Right.
on my alignment, my vision, like you said, if I don't have that conviction and that purpose, then I don't know either. And so, of course, I think, oh, Tosh might know better, but you don't know what's best for me because, like you said, like only I can be me and only you can be you.
Mhm.
And so I think it is just such a beautiful reminder of it's not something shameful or bad or negative to have ambition or purpose or vision. It's actually what's to be celebrated. And it's the best gift we can give ourselves to constantly be kind of exploring that and moving within it. And I read in a book too of if we're not stepping into our full selves and sharing all that we have with others, one, it's not doing a service to us, but two, what a disservice to everyone else in our universe,
Yeah.
right? And so if you're really worried about like doing stuff for other people, then that's a roundabout way to say, oh, well, then I don't want to take away from all these other incredible people in my life and dim my light, which dims theirs. So let me fully step into myself because I'm actually going to help others out. And so if that's your roundabout way of not doing it just for yourself, but doing it for someone else, it gets us all though to that same place. And that's why I think it is so detrimental when we give our power away, when we settle for the supporting role, when we don't really own our own leading lady script, because a lot of other people are missing out as a result.
I completely agree. And I think about, 2020 when so many women
Mm,
dropped out of the workforce because women are America's version of Medicare, right? Women fill in all of the things that the government doesn't. We are I think they call us the sandwich generation. So we're taking
yes.
care of the elderly and we're taking care of the young at the
Hmm.
same time. And they're both full-time jobs. So what do?
Yeah.
We take the back seat and allow
Yeah.
the other breadwinners, mostly men, to take that leading role. But I think that there's a leadership role in the home.
Hmm.
I saw my mother work extremely hard. She was widowed young with 4 kids, and she worked
Wow.
extremely hard to make sure that she was able to run her own business. She owns like a property empire, but she started with nothing. She started in her 20s with 4 kids,
Yeah. She's like
and
doing
she
this.
and just seeing the ambition and the drive,
Wow.
even
Yeah.
even working from the home that she had to do what she could. I think that was really important that she didn't, dim and say like, I'm just at this. You're not just in anything.
No.
Everyone's watching. I was
Yes.
watching. I was like, you're not just my mother. I see that you are, a business owner. You're not just my mother.
Mhm.
I see that you are a caretaker. You're not just my mother. I see that you are an extremely hard worker. So all of those things matter. And, people try and just make you something, but every sphere that you're in, you're leading and people are watching.
Yeah. And what a gift your mom gave you, because I bet that is what has potentially, you tell me if I'm wrong, but like potentially contributed to your own willing, like permission slip to have that ambition and to dream big and to do big things, because you had such an incredible role model teach you that that
Yeah,
was
I blame her
okay
for
and
everything.
possible. Mom, you
She
ruined
takes
me.
the credit, but I do blame her for everything because when I was a kid, I went to a school where girls weren't allowed. So in the UK, everyone wears school uniform. It's not just a private school thing.
Okay.
But I went to a school where girls weren't allowed to wear trousers. And it would be winter in London. Imagine how cold it was. And we would be
Yeah.
in skirts and we would have tights to keep us warm. And my mother was like,
Good
no.
old times.
She's like, you're wearing trousers just like your brother. You go to the same school, you're
This is
going to
what we're
get
doing.
the same uniform. So, of course, they sent 7-year-old me home and they said she's out of policy with our school uniform and she has to get in line. So, my mother kept me home for a week because she refused. And
Wow.
then she
Yeah.
started this like crazy little like revolt where all the other girl mums started to refuse. And
I
so
love
then
it.
slowly but surely more girls ended up staying home and the school was like, okay, girls can wear trousers. But I was crying. I was like, I don't want to be the face of this. I don't want to be the girl that's like sitting outside of the principal's office because I'm wearing
Right.
trousers.
Like my brother's pants. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all the other girls were like laughing at me as well. They were like, oh my gosh, you're
Mm,
wearing like, why aren't you wearing a skirt? And my mother was like,
right.
no, it's going to start young. You are going to like get in good trouble really young, whether or not you like it. And I was not on her side.
You had like, I hate you. This
I was
is
like,
not what I
please, can
want.
I just wear what everyone else is wearing? But
Yeah.
yeah, it started young at 7, anti-disestablishmentarianism. So there we go.
I love it. I love it. What a powerhouse your mom is. And I've met her. She is a very dynamic lady. I
She's
appreciated my
fun.
time with her. Yes. What do you think has been some of the for you, some of your own personal, some of those hardest moments of leaning into that leading role or not giving your power away? Or like what maybe have been some of the top challenges, if you want to share any with us, of when you really came up against that and had to make that choice?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna start with my immigrant story. And I think that if anyone resonates with not growing up in the US
Hmm.
and coming here at some point other than as a child, then I hope this resonates with you. But when I moved to the US in my mid-20s, I didn't have a social security number. I didn't know anyone here. I moved to the US with my 5 suitcases and just on the wing and the prayer. And I do not recommend it. So I had a job. So I moved here to start the US version of a consulting firm that I was
Okay.
working in the UK. And the
Hmm.
consulting firm specialized in mergers and acquisitions. So this was
Hmm.
post 2008, and there were a lot of, if you remember the Great Depression, there were a lot of bank mergers
Yes.
happening. So I remember
Yes.
being on Wall Street and the marches and just kind of
Uh-huh.
hide in my face because like secretly I was like, I should be out there because, the rebel in me is like, I should be out there, not in the bank.
Right, 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 right.
But yeah, I moved and for about 3 months, I did not have anywhere to live. So
Wow.
I would literally be at work in certain banks. I'm not going to say which, but I would be Googling where I was going to meet the next Craigslist person that said that I could sleep on their sofa. So
Wow.
I would just be dragging my suitcases around. Luckily, I was able to leave some in the cloakroom at work. So I would like put some in like the hand luggage and I
Right.
would kind
Like,
of
here's my
move
carry
things
on for the
around.
night.
This is my
Yeah.
carry-on for the night. I would leave the rest at work, and then I would
Wow.
take out the subway map because this is
Where am
before
I going?
iPhones, right?
Yeah.
And then I'd be
Yeah.
like, where am I going?
Yeah.
And then I would take out the piece of paper that I traced on Google Maps on the screen of
Gotta
my,
love Google Maps.
and then I would get off like somewhere in Brooklyn, and because that's what I could afford, right?
Right.
Somewhere in
Right.
deep, deep, deep Brooklyn, like close to
Right.
JFK. Then I would pull out the second piece of paper. I would meet some stranger on some corner somewhere, and that would be basically where I slept for the night. And this went
Wow.
on for about 3 months. And in those 3 months, because I didn't have a social security number, I also didn't get paid.
Oh
So
my gosh.
to recap, don't have a
Homeless,
social
essentially.
security
Houseless.
number,
Yeah.
homeless. Technically, I don't exist because I don't have a social
Right.
security
The
number,
government's like, you're not a person here.
and my company can't pay me
Oh
because
my
there's no social
gosh.
security number. So I would say those were probably the three most tenacious months of my life because blew through all of my savings, didn't know when it was going to end, didn't know when the
Hmm.
government was finally going to give me a social security number.
Right.
And basically just bouncing around New York City, sleeping on random strangers, Craigslist sofas, super dangerous, don't do it.
Don't
Working at an
recommend.
investment bank. So if you know what investment banker hours are like, I was doing that
Long.
basically like
Yeah.
16, 18-hour days,
Yeah.
scouring the internet for a cheap bed at night, and then using a burner phone from CVS because I needed a US number. And so you know those ones where like to text you gotta hit
Yeah.
like three, five
Three
times.
times. Like, which
Oh my
letter?
gosh,
Damn
it was.
it.
And I had this thing I would do where I would go to work. I had to be at work at 6 a.m. and I would leave around 10 p.m. So I would go to work and I would cry
Oh my God.
all the way to the financial
The
district from
office.
where I was
Hmm.
coming. And I don't know if you've ever seen someone cry but not wipe their tears. It's really weird. It's really weird to just see someone cry and not move to wipe their tears.
Right.
I was like,
Right. It's
what's the
just,
point? What's the point of wiping these tears? They're just going to come.
they're
So I
just going to keep
sat
coming.
there and cried for an hour when I got to work.
Wow.
And then at work, I would go wash my face, put on some makeup, put on my heels, and they had a lobby bathroom. So I would do it in the lobby. You know where the winter gardens are in Fire?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry, this
Yes.
is New
Yes.
York City for those who don't know the financial
Side eye.
district. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would go to lobby, lose. I would clean up, put my heels on. Then I would swipe my badge and make my way up to the bank. And I was told that nobody was none the wiser. No one knew I was homeless, which
Wow.
is great. The
Good for
client
you.
didn't know. That's the whole point. The
Yeah,
client
right.
didn't know I'm homeless.
Right. Right. Right.
My consulting firm didn't exactly cover themselves in glory with my transfer. But yes, basically survived off free snacks from the
The
pantry,
rec room or whatever. Yeah.
free drinks.
Yeah.
It was like the NYC starvation and stress diet. I lost 20 pounds. It was it was awful. So I moved in June. I didn't get an apartment until November.
Wow.
And I got my apartment because I got paid 3 months worth of salary all at the
So you
same
had some money to do something with.
money. But I
Nice.
didn't have a credit history. So I had to pay all 3 months and then some just to get into an apartment. Yes, because it's usually 3 months just to get into an apartment. First class
Right.
breakers. I had to
Right.
pay
Right. Right.
three to get into the apartment, and then I
And
had to
then
pay
collateral
collateral just in case I decided to
dipped out
escape.
or something.
Yes. So I actually had to borrow money from
Ugh,
my company to get into an apartment. So all the money they gave me went to the
was
apartment.
gone.
Plus
Yeah.
they gave me a loan. So 6 months paid. So what did I do? In my apartment, I was there. I sat on the floor. I had no furniture. So I put all my clothes on the floor and I just slept to my clothes for another month until I got paid. And so then my first paycheck, I got a bed. Next paycheck, I got a sofa. Um, Finally, after a year, I kind of had all the
Had
furniture
an
I
apartment
needed for.
a little bit.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
took a whole year
Yeah.
to furnish this apartment. Like every
Yeah.
paycheck, I was like, oh, now I can get something else. But yeah,
Yeah.
I slept on the floor for a month on top of clothes, and it was
Oof.
yeah, it was tenacious, I have to say. So conviction, I really felt a conviction that I was supposed to be in the US. I felt like there was a higher call, and not to get too spiritual on
Mhm.
everyone, but I honestly felt like there was a higher call and that God was bringing me here for a reason. And then secondly, I mean, I was just so damn ambitious. Like, why not? Why
I
wouldn't
love that.
I?
Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes if you wake up on a strange sofa or on a floor in a New York City apartment in the Upper East Side which flooded, by the way. So yeah,
Oh God.
I would wake up in wet
Okay.
clothes with bed bugs swimming around me. Sometimes
Oh.
that's just how you make it in America.
It
Yeah,
really is. It really is. No, what an incredible story. And I'm laughing a little too, because mine was not as traumatic as yours. But when I moved from California to New York, we also had nowhere to live for almost a month and a half, 2 months. I was starting grad school. I was schlepping around New York from hotel to Airbnb with my two roommates at the time. My parents like left us. My mom was like crying. She's like, "You don't know where you're living." And I was like, "We'll figure it out." And I'm starting grad school. I had pneumonia. I was living out of suitcases. We didn't have a washer or dryer. I was like figuring it out. Also slept on an air. I did have an air mattress. I feel very thankful for that. But like an air mattress was our couch slash our bed for like the first whatever. So I think it was not as tenacious as yours, but I can empathize with that. Like I felt though convicted to be there too. And I read about this in my book that is coming out soon, of my story about going to New York, is that first moment of like, oh, I can breathe. Like I'm meant for more. What else is out here? And so I kind of love that it's a similar something about that city and just that time. And I was there 2009, so it was around the
yeah,
same time we were figuring it out together without even knowing
yeah,
each other.
yeah,
But yeah, just it, you have to really want it, right? Because that was hard, and it was hard, much harder for you, but like hard in both ways, to be changing and doing and not having a place. And but like that conviction and that ambition, I think really has to be there to keep you going and keep you invested. And I'm thankful. I'll never look back. It really paid off. It sounds like you're really thankful you
yeah.
stuck it out as well. But it is crazy to look back and be like, wow, what was I doing? But it was worth
And
it, you know?
I think I even in that moment, I had the foresight to see myself beyond it, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what kept pushing me. I was like, in a year from now, you'll be in an apartment, you'll have a great job. I had to leave that job. Like you can't butcher that bad, and I stay with you, right? So I
Right,
was
right,
like,
right, right, right.
in a
You're
year
like,
from
it
now,
won't be this job. Yeah.
you'll actually be valued at your job. You will
Yeah.
have a great apartment. You'll have great friends. Yeah, and I had none of those things at the time, but I kept telling myself, like, to see
You
myself
will.
in that future
Mm-hmm.
state. And so even as I was crying, like, crazy tears on the subway on the way to
Yeah.
work, I was still seeing beyond it. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted that thing I could see beyond the current situation. So yeah,
Right.
I'm going.
Which goes back to that whole thing of why vision's so important. If we
Mhm.
don't have the vision, if we don't have that end game, that next step in mind, it makes everything else really hard when life gets really hard. And inevitably it will at times, right? But it feels slightly easier and slightly more worth it and more bearable when we understand what this is laying a foundation for. And it's just that greatness. And I think also that mentality of like dreaming up, blowing up, thinking big, not settling for less, not keeping it small,
Mhm.
is what I think has allowed you, it sounds like, also to just keep reaching new heights and spaces, because you're not maxing yourself out with a low ceiling. Like each new goal is like, how can we keep raising that ceiling,
Yeah.
raising that bar, because we're never kind of done. And then not in an exhausting way, just in a, there's always room to keep leveling up in some
Yeah,
way,
I
I
mean,
think.
you know when you've hit your ceiling, right? No one else can
Mm-hmm.
tell you. And I knew even at that point, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
you've not hit the maximum amount of, you
Right.
know, pain that
Right.
you can take in this moment or what you can achieve. And
Right. Right.
my mother always says, like, you'll grow through what you go through. And so I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is just growing pains. Like,
Yeah.
I just gotta get through it. Like
Yeah.
some things you only grow by going. So yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes that's the only way it works. You gotta get through it.
Yeah. I love that. Well, do you have any sort of tips or takeaways, or I mean, you've given us tons of nuggets of advice and wisdom, but anything you kind of want to leave folks with, just to keep in mind, to hold on to, maybe a little challenge, just as we're kind of winding down? our
Yeah.
conversation today?
I would just say that leading is not easy. Leading anything, like even leading your own life, isn't easy.
Yeah.
It would be so good if you took it easy and things went well. Like it would be so good if like you just stopped going to the gym, but somehow you grew
Stayed fit
muscle.
and strong and everything.
Yeah, like
Exactly.
why does doing nothing not result in results? Like I wish it did. I wish
Hmm.
that if I did nothing, I would just like look
Shit would just happen.
good. My
Yeah.
hair would always look good. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
always have to put in the effort. And
Mm.
unfortunately, not putting in the effort doesn't leave you in the same place. You actually go backwards
Yeah.
just by
Yeah.
not putting in the effort. And I remember my friend telling me this story of when she was a kid and she was on their family boat. So imagine the kind of friend I'm talking about. But she's like, I love it
Family
when people
boat.
tell you these stories without realizing like
Yeah,
what
you're
they're
like,
saying.
well,
But she's
must
like,
be nice.
she was
Yeah.
like, yeah, when I was a kid, I was on my family boat and I was about 10 and my dad was like, hey, Yvonne, you can drive the boat. And so I was driving the boat and he's like, just keep it straight. And so I just kept it straight. But 10 minutes later, he came back and we were like 50 miles off course. And the
Wow.
problem with just keeping it straight is that if you just keep it straight, you will go off course because you have to keep going back to
Adjusting.
just a little bit,
Hmm.
just a little
Hmm.
bit. And he's
Hmm.
like, Yvonne, why didn't you keep adjusting it back to north? And she said, that's not what you said. You
You said just
said
keep it
just
straight.
keep it straight.
Yeah.
And so, with the power and the velocity with which they were moving, they were supposed to be here, but after 10 minutes, they were there.
Wow. Yeah.
And she said the moral of the story that her dad told her is like, straight doesn't mean straight. Straight means like every single day, you got to be like tweak, 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 tweak.
Yep.
And that's how you go straight. And so, every single day, you've got to be like, where's straight, where's straight, where's straight. Because otherwise, you'll look up and you'll be north by northwest or north by northeast.
Right. Right.
And so it always requires doing something. I know it's exhausting to be like, oh, I gotta do it again today, but it always requires doing something. And it's better to do a little something than to
Hmm.
wait 10 years, 20
Hmm.
years, and then try and do something. You're so far off course at that point instead of the
Yeah.
tiny little tweak. But I would say that it always takes courage, resilience, and an open mind. Like things are changing every single day.
Yep.
And there's always a new and better way to do something. So, like,
Yep.
just embracing the future with open arms and being willing to adapt and learn and grow, um, and embrace change. I think that change is probably the word of the season right now.
Yes. Yes.
Um, uh, you know, Here in Miami, everything could be changed tomorrow. But I think the
Yeah.
number one piece of advice I have is just to like mentally, emotionally, and practically keep your eyes open for change because
Mm.
the only guarantee in life is change. The only constant is change.
Yes. Yes.
And as long as you remain resilient enough that no matter what changes, you're not fully knocked over, and that you can get back up. And that reminds me of the palm tree. Like the palm trees here, like never break, hardly ever break because they
Right.
bend. And
Right.
when the winds are over, they come back up. And so
Yep.
that flexibility is what allows them to withstand the change. And I think that it's very easy to be like hard in your ways, like this is the right way to do it. This is the way it's always been done. I'm the leader. I'm in charge. But like that hot new Gen Z person, like could probably use an AI tool and get it done so much quicker. But
Right. Right.
but you've decided that this is the way it's done. They've got to follow your template. Um,
Right. Right.
so yeah, if you don't bend your break, and I guess that's probably what I'd leave people with, like mentally,
I
emotionally,
love that.
practically prepare for change.
I love it.
That would be my biggest tip and trick.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here today. I know it's been a crazy week for all of us Floridians, so I appreciate us finding the time. And I just really always love having conversations with you. I always leave feeling, so much fuller, and they just feel very rich. So I'm thankful to get to share our conversation with others. I know they're going to take really great things from it. And I hope everyone is staying safe and has a good rest of their night. And I'll see you all next Tuesday.
Thank
See
you,
you
Alicia.
later.
Bye.
Bye.